Investment Centers of America financial advisor Brad Connors, CWS. Brad built his practice in Waseca, Minnesota, located 10 miles from his hometown. He started in the financial planning business in 1994 and continues to refine his business model as the practice has grown. Brad affiliated with ICA in 1998 and has consistently been the top 5% of his peers, including 2010 ICA Representative of the Year. Brad believes in running his firm as a business from start to finish with a repeatable process that others can learn. He's been on the forefront of helping other advisors grow their practice and teaching them what they should be working towards to have a profitable and enjoyable business. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Connors.
Good morning. If that doesn't make you feel, I really appreciate being up here this morning. As I was thinking about being here today, there were several things passing through my mind about how grateful that I am to be here. And one of them is the fact that I get to stand in front of you guys and have a conversation about myself and some of the things that have changed over time. And hopefully be able to affect you as they did me over time as well. A couple other things that makes me feel grateful about being here. As you mentioned in the video, I grew up in Minnesota, live in Minnesota, and this morning when I got up to go for my run, it was minus 8 degrees in Minnesota. So Florida truly is a blessing, so I could go outside and go for my run this morning. What was interesting is as I was on my run, I had a t-shirt on and shorts, and I ran across somebody that had a sweatshirt on and a stocking hat and gloves. And my perspective was a little bit different than their perspective, wasn't it? And so as we sit here January 11th, you know, we've got a renewed start here to the year. And I just ask that you take a look at your perspective in that glass, if it's half full or half empty. And try to make that glass half full, right, with perspective. Then I went back up to my room and showered, and the newscaster was talking about how cold it's going to be tonight. It's going to be in the 40s, and you better look out for your plants, and you better protect your pets because it's going to be so cold. What's interesting is I'd probably go to jail. I just got done pheasant hunting at 6 degrees back in Minnesota with my dog, so I'm probably in trouble there too. The last key thing as far as being grateful, again, being from Minnesota, I'm a Viking season ticket holder. Yeah, and if you watched yesterday, it was not pretty.
Nope, that's not.
Fortunately, I did not have to get in my pickup truck and drive home after the game yesterday because I was on a plane on the way here. I did see something I've never seen before. I saw a grown woman at 10,000 feet go into the bathroom and cry because her Minnesota Vikings lost. And it was my wife, Trudy, who's here today. So, again, perspective, Trudy, right? So I want to talk to you guys about changes that I've made in my life, and I hope that you'll be able to see some things for yourself here. And here's my wish. I hope that you came with an open mind this morning. And I hope that you can just take one thing away from my presentation, just one, that you can go back in your office and implement or in your life personally or professionally. I hope that you can take 3 things away from this conference over the next 3 days to go back and change. If you can take 3 things back to your office, I've learned that that's all I need in order to set my path straight for the rest of the year. So write down one change, and then lastly, when I finish my presentation, I'd like you to have more clarity and confidence when it comes to yourself and you get back to your practice. So I want to give you a little bit of perspective about me and my background. And on my website at iWealth for Me, our business website, I have about 8 different videos that we have. And one of them is called Who I Am. And if you would play that, Brian, I'd appreciate it.
The earth didn't care what he looked like. He made a living working at Cato Engineering. He loved everybody, and he was loved by everybody. His life was never about things. It was about people. He could afford the things that he wanted, but if you knew him, you knew that he was the happiest just sharing an afternoon with a good cup of coffee. He savored life, and he taught me how to savor life. My grandfather always put his family first. By him doing so, it's really left an impression on me to this day. He motivated me, I think, to do what I do today. From him I learned that when it comes to my own life, it's not about accumulating stuff. It's about having what I need to live a full life, and more importantly, being a good provider. In second grade, this pretty girl sat down next to me on the bus, and by high school, I talked her into becoming my sweetheart. Over 20 years later, I'm blessed to have 2 wonderful children, a healthy family, and a growing practice. The bottom line, I'm not a Wall Street broker. I'm a guy who grew up in a small town, surrounded by a family who loved me and taught me the values of who I am today. At the end of the day, I want those same values to continue on with my own family. My practice has really become an extension of who I was raised to be, and it's that experience that you can expect when dealing with me.
The guy at the beginning was my grandfather, to talk about perspective. So I wanted to set the stage a little bit today about where I've been and kind of what has happened to me throughout time. So you learned a little bit about my family. My wife Trudy and I are high school sweethearts, and she, like I said, she's here today. But in high school, I played football at 175 pounds. I wrestled at 160, and then I went on to play junior college football. And in the 8th game, I tore my ACL, and it was time to grow up and move on with life. But I played college football at 205. And the reason I tell you that is because I went, after leaving high school, like many of us do, and put on weight, and I went up to 290 pounds at that time. And when that was happening, I didn't care that I weighed that much. Thought I might look heavy, right? Until you look back at the pictures and truly see it. But my life was out of whack. And so I started my career in 1998 with Investment Centers of America. In fact, I knocked on their door. I was in the insurance business. Like I said, I went to Normandale Community College. I then went on and got a desktop publishing degree and had a buddy of mine that was in the insurance business, and that's how I started. Door to door, having dinner seminars, cold calling, those type of things. So in year 2000, we started our family. Trudy and I had our daughter, Kendra. And at that time, again, the weight had crept up. My schedule was out of whack. I would get up at 7, go to work at 8, come home at 5:30 or 6, have dinner, get on the computer, remember ACT, get on the computer and work on that, and then go to bed at 10 o'clock. And then all of a sudden, Kendra walked into our life. And I knew that I needed a change from the standpoint I wanted to be around her. I could not be working in the evening. And so what happened is this. And this is my wedding picture on the right-hand side, and then another picture at an ICA function. And what happened was I just didn't care, as I said. I'd go to Dairy Queen 3 days a week. Nothing wrong with them, but eating a Blizzard 3 days a week probably isn't healthy. 6-pack of pop every day. No exercise, didn't care, alcohol, all that other kind of stuff. I had a beer last night. I'm not up here to talk about that. But something had to change. And here's what happened. Harry Pappas. In fact, I should call Harry and talk to him. I haven't. It was in Florida. It was a national sales conference, and I might have been at St. Pete's Beach. Harry Pappas was an LPL rep. Right now he works for Wells Fargo. I looked him up. March 2001, my daughter was born August of 2000. March 2001, I'm sitting in a crowd just like you are, and Harry was there to sell us his WOW program. He spoke for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and he had this kit and this on how to wow your clients. It was good material, and we still use some of it to this day. But what happened for me is that he changed my life that day, and it wasn't about his WOW program, it was about how he runs his life. I looked at Harry, he was on stage, he was fit, he was in good shape, he seemed like a good man, and he told all of us about how he runs his day. See, Harry would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work. But it wasn't work right away. It was grab a cup of coffee, it was daily devotion, then it was exercise, a little bit of work, and then it was go to work every single day. And when I was sitting out there, I knew I needed to change. I was overweight, I didn't exercise, I never had time for my wife and for my daughter, and things had to change. And that day I decided to make that change. And this slide's really about you. It only takes a person to change your life, and it's you. Again, you can stand and listen to people's stories like I'm telling today, but only you have the ability to make that change. So I had to make that fundamental change in routines that had to shape my day. But I ask you guys this, if you'd grab a piece of paper and a pencil, I just want to ask you just a couple questions here. And I belong to Strategic Coach. I'm in my 8th year. But Dan Sullivan coined this R factor question. So here's what I want you to answer. 1 year from today, if you came back and sat in these same seats, you walked right back in this room this morning, you sat down a year from now, what has to take place in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to be happy with your success? I want you to write down a couple things on the professional side of things and personally. What has to change or what has to be true 12 months from now when you walk through these doors and sit down? On the personal side of things, do you have any changes to make like me? How about professionally? Is there some changes you need to make there? Is there a new hire? Is there somebody that needs to be let go? If this is going to be your best year ever, what changes need to happen? Personally and professionally. See, what I had to do is I had to get my head straight when Harry was talking. I had to figure out what was important to me. What had to change? I had to create boundaries at that time. I had to change some people in my life. Didn't happen overnight. I didn't go home and fire people. But I had to change some of the people that I was hanging out with, some of the bad habits. I had to communicate these changes. My spouse, Trudy, was the first one. You know, I've lost about 100 pounds. Over that time period, my wife has lost 40 pounds. It was a lifestyle change. It wasn't magic. It took years to happen, but it wasn't difficult either. It was perspective. Communicate these changes. If it's with your office, communicate them with your office manager or somebody you're working with. Tell them what you need to do. So what did I do? I went home that next week and I made a change. I decided I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I was up this morning at 5 a.m. Monday through Friday, it's 5 a.m. That's just what it is. At 5 a.m., I wake up, I go downstairs, and I start my coffee. I then have my daily devotion for 10 minutes or so to get my perspective for the day. Then it's work. I don't check emails during the day. If you guys have an assistant and you're checking emails all day long, think about offloading. Emails are evil in my eyes. I check emails then in the morning. Get ready for the day. And around 6 to 6:15, I'm either at the weight room or down in my basement on the treadmill or out on the bike path if it's not 8 below zero. At 7 o'clock, it's breakfast with the family. The kids are up. I take the kids to school by 8 o'clock and I'm at work. That's prior to work. When I get to work, it's 8 a.m. And then Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays are focus days. Those are days where I spend 80% of my time generating revenue, client meetings, client-facing calls, meetings, those type of things. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, again, these come from Strategic Coach. Buffer days, Wednesdays and Fridays from 8 to noon are buffer days. Fridays, I'm out of the office. I'm at Starbucks. I'm working on presentations like this. I'm working on marketing, doing different things, looking down on my business planning. Those are buffer days. And Saturday and Sundays are free days. I went 10 years in this business without a free day. That also helped lead to that weight gain and unhappiness that I had. I would go on vacation for a week and check email every day. I would bring the registered rep magazines, right? Anybody ever take a stack of them with you on a trip? And go through those. That's not free. Free day is a 24-hour period where you're not checking email and you're not talking to your spouse or anybody about business. I'm happy to report I hit my 125 days last year of free days, which is the most I've ever had in my career. But it's taken me time to get there. You have to structure your day, create the boundaries, and create the routines. At least in my practice, that's what I've had to do. Evening, 5 o'clock or so, I try to be done with work. One night a week, so probably every other week, I'm there maybe till 7 where I have a later meeting. Dinner with the kids activities, family time, weekends typically are free, but they weren't right away. Again, I've made leaps and bounds with this strategy, but it's been over time. It's been through Strategic Coach and things like that. My point to you today is that change has to come from within. It can't come from somebody sitting next to you or somebody you lay in the bed next to that tells you need to change. It's got to come from within. Only you know what those changes are for yourself. Only you can choose your path going forward. And so in closing, my thoughts today that I leave with you are this. I hope that you have one thing. Look at your list of things that need to happen over the next 12 months. I hope you have one thing that you can go back and take a look at the changes that you want to make in your life and be able to institute those changes. You can do it. You know you can do it. You're successful. You're already sitting here today. Just make that little bit of fundamental change, and it can change the rest of your life. Thank you, and God bless.